Okay, so this is the third video. It's a continuation of previous videos where I show how to animate a sprite character in Construct. This is what we have so far. You could walk left or right, crouch, crawl to the left or right. You could run, dash to the left or right by double pressing either the A key or the D key. Also, I showed how to do combination of key presses to perform a special action. So if I press down, down, right, it performs that animation. If I press down, down, left, it's the other direction. So in this video, let's continue adding more stuff to it. I'm thinking maybe we could do like a jumping animation and maybe holding down a key. Maybe if you hold it down longer, it performs more than one action. So let's get started working on that. These are the events we have. You could see it in the previous videos, or you could also download it on my Patreon page. Okay, so as far as jumping goes, there are built-in behaviors that will handle that sort of thing. There's a platform behavior, but we're not going to use that in this case. We're just going to do it all custom made just to kind of show you more different things that you can do. More to see how you can control stuff rather than have the program control it for you. That way you could manipulate it in more ways. Okay, so we have this animation. We create another animation here. I'm just going to duplicate this and rename it to jump. And let's give it a color just to make it look different. And that one slightly different just to show that it's kind of getting animated. In this case, let's see, we could have it, yeah, we don't want it to repeat. It'll just play once, a certain speed, I guess 15 frames per second. And then let's create another animation and call it fall. So the jump will be when it's traveling up and the fall will be when it's traveling down. I usually like to use two animations for those cases just because it tends to look better. And there you go. So one animation looks like that, the other animation is the other color. Just to differentiate them so that we could see that something's actually happening when we create the events. That's just placeholder artwork. Now we have this floor here. It's a tiled background. You usually wouldn't use a tiled background for the floor, but in this case we'll just keep it there, and I'll show you how that'll get integrated into the jumping. We need a key press for the jump. So when the W key is pressed, we will make the character jump. So in this case, we'll probably want to have instance variables on the player character. So let's create an instance variable called jumping, or is jumping, just to be more concise. And we'll create we'll set the type to Boolean, which means it'll either be false or true. The default value is false. Let's create another one on floor, and it'll also be a Boolean value. So if the character's on the floor, this will be set to true. If the character is jumping, that is jumping will be set to true. And we could add another, well, no, I'm trying to think. This is all all of this isn't planned out. I'm just kind of figuring stuff out as I go. That way you can kind of see the thought process involved. Let's just use those two values for now, variables. And if we need another one, we could add another one later. Oh, yeah, we'll need another one for the velocity of the character when it's jumping. So velocity of the y-axis, and that'll be a number. And let's see, that might be all we need for now. We could create an acceleration value, but I don't think we could just do that in the events. Okay, so the velocity stores the current velocity of the character. So when we press W, let's set the velocity to, I don't know, -100. That might be too much, but we'll see how it goes. So -100 is pointing up because the x and y, the positive goes down because x and y is from the top left of the screen. And we want the character to jump up. So we set the velocity -100. Okay, so that's when W is pressed. Now let's create another event and compare the player's instance value. No, let's is Boolean instance variable set, is jumping. If that's set, then we will change the player's y position, set y position to self.y plus self.velocity y. Okay, we will also apply some gravity to the velocity so that the velocity changes over time. So let's set value of velocity to self.velocity plus 100 times dt. Okay, so it'll change the velocity by 100 times dt, and that means 100 pixels per second. Okay, so it'll do that whenever the character state is jumping. Now we need to set it to is jumping when we press W, but also add another condition. We need to check if the player is on the floor. So is Boolean instance on floor set to true, and then we'll set the velocity, and we will also set set is jumping to true, and Okay, yeah, that's okay. Now we'll also need to check a way to check if the player is on the floor. So that'll be relative to the tile background. In this case, this is just a simple example, but yeah, so we will compare player's Y position if it is greater than or equal to the tiled background Y position minus 16 pixels. Just actually cancel that. We will compare, well, I guess it doesn't really matter which way. I guess it's more intuitive to base it on the player's position. Compare player's position if it's if it's greater than or equal to the tiled background Y. Now if we just do that, I'll show you what happens later. But just keep that in mind. We're gonna have to change this later, and I'll show you why. So we will set player set the boolean on floor to true, and we will set the player position. Actually, let's hold off on that for now. Okay, it'll set it to true. Else we will set it to false. So I copied that event and pasted it and then changed it to false. So basically, if the player's above the ground, set it on floor false. If it's inside the ground or right on it, set it to true, meaning it's on the floor. And then up here, when W is pressed while the player's on the floor, make it jump. And then if it's jumping, move the character based on the velocity values. Okay, so that should be enough to make it jump. So let's try it out. Okay, so we have the character. We can move left and right. If we hit W, let's see what happens. Nothing happens. Okay, let's go back. Let's see what's happened. Oh, wait a second. So it's greater than or equal to on floor is true. Else on floor is false. Oh, I see. I know why. Oops. Oh my gosh. Dropped my headphones. Sorry about that. Anyways. Okay. This is unedited video. So, is jumping. I know what the problem is. It's because the character is in the air currently. You see his position's in the middle right here. And that's its coordinate right here. And it's floating above the ground. So by that standard, it thinks that the character is not on the floor. So since it's not on the floor, when we press W, it won't jump. And it only moves the character down when it is jumping, and we haven't set it to jumping yet. And so the better thing to do would to check to see if this is not on the floor rather than if it's jumping or not. So if this is not on the floor, then it will move the character down based on the velocity. So let's see if it'll automatically start moving, I think, when we run it, and see what happens. Yep, it moved the character down, and when we press W, nothing happens. Let's go back and see what happens. Now also, the character was in front of the, or in back of the floor, so let's change the Z order. Send that to the back so the character's in front. Okay, now, okay, so it set it onto, it set on floor to true because it moved it. And then velocity minus 100 is jumping true. Okay, let's set on floor to false when we press jump. Let's try that. Let's try running that, see what happens. Okay, so he's considered on the floor. We hit W and he jumped. He jumped really high and then he fell down really fast. So let's adjust the values a bit. Instead of negative 100, let's put negative 10. Actually, negative 10. Yeah, let's try negative 10. Let's see how that is different. Okay, we press W and he jumps. Jump, 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 jump. Okay, so he's jumping. As you can see, he's not landing exactly on the floor. And that is because it thinks the position, it's using the coordinate centered in the player sprite. So we need to change this, like I said before, and create an offset of 16 pixels. I know that's kind of odd, but this is a simple video where we're just showing one case. There are other ways to do it that are a bit more complicated. So if we do that, oh, we also need to reposition the player Y position to the tiled background, that Y minus 16, because when it gets set, when it sets the on floor to true, the character might be further below the floor than it should be. So we have to reset the Y position of the player and make it look as it's standing on the floor again. So let's see what happens when we've done that. Okay, see, standing on the floor, and he jumps and he lands directly on the floor. Pretty cool, huh? Now, that works pretty good. Obviously he's jumping and falling really quickly. We could adjust that so that he jumps more slower. Let's try adjusting it. What we would adjust is changing the velocity, make that slower. Let's try 25 and make this 5 instead. Let's try that. So now he's jumping much slower. So that's pretty cool. Now as you can see, while we're jumping, the jump animations aren't playing. So we need to add that. So let's go back, and also if you notice, is jumping isn't really used for any of these other events. So we could probably get rid of, well, let's keep it there for now. Okay, so up here we have the other animations that get played. So let's add another condition here. If the player is on the floor, then we could play these other animations because the player is on the floor. So the walking animation, crawling animation, all those animations should only play if the player is on the floor. Now when we press the W key, we'll change the player animation to jump. Okay. Let's see what happens when we run that. So we could run, we could crawl. When we jump, the jump animation plays. Also, doesn't seem to jump left and right because we changed how that works up here, so we'll have to change that. Actually, we could just we could just create another set of events that moves it while it's jumping, but then you'd have duplicate moving events, which is fine. You could do it that way. It might be simpler so that we don't mess up these other events. Or we could change these events to incorporate the jumping. We have the crawl there, the run, and the walk. We could, let's see here, add a blank event, move this animation crawl down into that, and move this is on floor condition into that event, so that the crawl only runs when it's on the floor, right? And then we could do the same thing for these other animations. I mean, why not? Should work. And then the same thing over here. And over here. And over here. So now, oh, and we could add that is on floor. Idle is on floor. Actually, we could just create a blank sub event, move it up here, put is on floor into that, get rid of this other one that we added, and then put all these inside this event so that these animations only get run if it's on the floor. So let's see what happens if we do that. Okay, so we'll move left and right. Animations still work. And if we jump, the jump animation works. And we could still move left and right. So that's pretty good. So that's jumping. What about the falling? We have jumping up. What about falling animation? Well, when we press W, it changes the animation to jump. And the velocity is negative. And when the velocity is negative, the player is moving upwards. So when the velocity is positive, the player is moving downwards, which means the player would be falling. So we'd have to check when the player is not on the floor. Add a sub event. Check compare instance value velocity. If it's greater than 0, then we set the animation to fall. Okay. So let's try that. So we got the moving, we got the jumping, and the falling. You can see the color changes for the fall when the player starts moving downwards. So you could have the animation look like he's jumping up, throwing his hands up in the air, whatever, and then when he's falling, maybe he gets more relaxed and maybe his legs move forward a bit, showing that he's kind of adjusted his center of balance while he's jumping. That way it looks a bit better. But for this case, we just changed the color. And so now, what about holding down a button to attack? We have a combination of key presses makes special attack. What about if we just hold down a button or press a button a bunch of times? Let's do another action. So first we need to create another animation. We'll just duplicate one of these. Oh, do we already have an attack? Let's remove this. Delete that. We have an attack 1 and an attack 2. We haven't used the attack 2 yet. So we'll use that. Actually, we do need to add another one. Attack 3. So attack 2 will be when you press a key, and then attack 3 will be when you hold down that key. So you press it, it'll do the attack 2, and if you keep holding down attack 2, when it finishes it'll do attack 3. So it'll be like like a suit, I don't know what you would call it, like a heavier attack or something. I don't know. Anyways, let's change the color of this to something more noticeable. Maybe that color. Okay, so that's that. So it goes from blue to like a purple. Alright. Okay. We have attacking. Trying to think how to do this. Alright, let's just start simple. On key pressed, I don't know, let's choose a key. Doesn't matter which key. We're using WASD for movement. How about we use J? On J pressed, let's set the animation to attack 2. Okay. And let's create another event. On finished, when an animation finishes, when attack 2 finishes, let's check if the key is still being pressed. Is the key down? Is the J key down? If it is, let's set the animation to attack 3. Seems pretty simple. And now what? It might conflict with some of the other events based on what's happening, but let's just run it, see what happens. It might work, it might not. If we move left, move right, down, crawl, press J, nothing happens pressing J. So let's go back, let's try and debug what the issue is. Let's try and figure out what's wrong. Set attack. So it's setting the animation. I'm assuming it's setting it to attack 2, but then one of these other events is setting the animation back to idle. So over here we have this idle, and if we scan back up, we figure out why it's setting it to idle. These other keys aren't pressed, right? So that's true. It's on the floor. Yep, that's true. Let's go back up. Attacking equals 0. Yep, that's true. So that's why it's being set to idle after we press the key. So what we need to do is attacking. We should set attacking to 1, I guess. Where is it? Set value. Oh, because the instance value is inside this animation group right here. We'll need to move these events into the group. So attacking, here we set attacking for the other attack. Let's just copy that event and paste it here. Let's see, let's run that and see what happens. So we can move. If we press J, he attacks. But now we can't move anymore. Still attack. If we hold it down, it does the second one. See, I'm holding it down. I just pressed it once there, once again. But now we can't move for some reason. Why? Because attacking is still set to 1. So let's create another event below. When attack 2 is finished, set attacking to 0. And when attack 3 is finished, set attacking to 0. Now I have a suspicion that if we hold down J, when it does attack 3, attacking will be 0, so it won't play because it gets set to 0 when attack 2 is finished. So we'll have to put another condition, is J not down, and then set it to 0. Because if it's down, it means attack 3 is going to play next. So let's try that. See what happens. So we can move, crawl, attack, and still move. Now if we hold down, plays twice. Notice how it goes back to the idle when attack 3 is finished, and we can move again. That's pretty cool. You can jump. Notice how when I jumped and attacked, it set it to attack, but it immediately set it to the falling animation because the animation changed when he was moving down. So now that attack animation didn't have time to finish, so the attack value didn't get set back to 0, so now I can't move unless I attack again and finish those animations, and then the attack gets set to 0 and now I can move again. So that's a bug. It's a bug that we created when we hit attack while jumping. So that's something we'll need to figure out how to fix. So let's do that. Let's fix that. So when we're jumping, I don't know if we want to be allowed to attack while jumping. We might want to do a different attack while jumping. But anyways, we could just simply adjust this, add another condition that checks if the player is on the floor. That way it won't attack while the player is jumping. That's one way to fix it. If you want to allow the player to attack while jumping, then we'd need another solution. But let's just run that to see how it works. You can move left and right, jump, and if we jump and hit attack, nothing happens. It continues jumping, like as if we didn't press the attack. So I press it, and if I press it on the ground, it's good. Another thing you might be wondering about is why he stops when he attacks. Maybe you want to keep moving while he attacks. It's another thing that you could adjust in the events. But for now, I think for this video that shows a little bit more stuff that you could do. As you can see, we have a whole bunch of different things that you can do. Different animation states for the player. So that's pretty simple. It could be a lot more complex. The more involved and detailed you want to make the animation states and things like that. Different types of actions and stuff. Maybe, like, when dashing and pressing down, maybe he does a roll. Or when he jumps, you could do like a kick attack when you press the attack key. Or jump and press down and attack. Maybe he does like some diving attack or something like that. Or I don't know. All kinds of possibilities you could do. So hopefully that gives you a little idea as to how to manage different animation states. Holding keys down, doing key combinations, down, down, left, down, down, right. Dashing, walking, crawling. Yeah. So I think I'm going to stop the video with that. Hopefully that was helpful and gives you a good idea how to manage your events, how to make different stuff happen, different conditions, and by inverting them, or when an attack finishes, when keys are pressed, different variables, instance variables that you could add to the player. Is jumping on floor, the velocity, how the velocity makes the character move, and how based on the Y position, whether it's on the floor or off of the floor, that sort of thing. So yeah, there you go. If you want anything covered, leave it in the comments and I'll get back to you. Maybe I could create some other videos about other stuff. This file will also be available on my Patreon page for my patrons. You won't need, I don't think you'll need to donate or spend any money. Just become a Patreon and it should be available. But other videos that I do might be more advanced, so we'll see how it goes.